say among the nations, the Lord reigns. Let the heavens rejoice.
Let the earth be glad. Let the sea resound.
Hello there. Hola.
Welcome to Fiji, an armada of 322 islands on tomorrow's side of the international dateline.
This is definitely the most exciting new development in God's work in Fiji. There's no two ways about that.
A South Pacific paradise whose elite resorts attract Hollywood's A-list.
It's just a blessing to live in Fiji at this time, at this hour, just to experience this new move of God.
$850,000 people are lucky enough to live here permanently. Just over half are ethnic Fijian. The rest are mostly Indians.
The Christian community have gone to God in prayer just about everywhere.
People have been crying to God for help.
They went to God and asked that God would intervene.
He's answered our prayers.
Now, Fiji is in the middle of a full-blown national revival.
It's something that we have been longing for years. We want the church to come together.
This great revival spirit that came, this is God's work. It is not human work.
We just stand in awe when we look at what is happening.
Observing Fiji's newfound joy, it is hard to imagine the darkness that gripped the nation just 5 months after the millennial celebrations. This is the side of paradise tourists don't see. From early tribal days, Fijians have been at war with themselves and with others. And in May 2000, trouble flared afresh.
The civil disorders have disrupted our lives like never before.
It's to do with the rebellious spirit in us that had the spirit of sedition, the spirit of jealousy and anger and division that's been in us, ingrained in our culture.
When the country's first non-Fijian prime minister gained power, a violent coup broke out.
When we had the elections and the Indians won the elections and they got into power, the Fijians did not like it.
The government was held hostage at gunpoint for 56 days by Fijian nationalist George Spate.
For about 56 days, they could not get out from the point of the gun.
How can we see that our Prime Minister being elected Prime Minister being beaten by thugs?
You're talking about a very extremist group of people who had the power to control this country. And their ideology, their ideas were all very frightening. And they were able to, at one point, to sway a good number of our people to their side.
Yeah, he's a hero.
Radical thoughts led to deadly action.
There was a mutiny in our camp where soldiers actually attacked each other. There was killing as well.
Queen Elizabeth Barracks, permanent headquarters for Fiji's army. Tension is rising outside. Security is being tightened all over the country. 1,000 rounds of .22 ammunition was found at Nandi in the west of the country, and curfew laws are being extended.
Theft and vandalism tore a gaping hole in the nation's infrastructure and psyche.
There was violence in the streets.
This is the first time this has happened, and most of the business community has been targeted. It's a disaster. Absolutely shocking.
A once robust economy collapsed. Within 7 days, tourism arrivals had dropped to a trickle.
Australia and New Zealand in particular, it was the headline news for weeks. It was quite devastating.
At the moment, the focus will be on the army and which side it decides to support. Marisha Novak, BBC News.
The nation reached its lowest ebb since it was expelled from the British Commonwealth in the late 1980s.
Very worrying situation, especially that once this armed attack on the constitutionally elected government took place, and then we saw this rioting in the streets.
We've become a nation known to breed perpetrators of coup d'etats. And even our soldiers cannot be trusted when they have guns in their hands.
That was a very powerful force that was in control of that 56 days in Fiji. It must have been one of the most darkest period in our history.
It brought right into our faces a situation that we'd never seen before, and certainly something we wouldn't like repeated.
It was going backwards to the dark ages. There was no normalcy anymore.
It was through that political upheaval that there was a lot of soul searching in the heart of a lot of leaders. Why does this happen in our generation?
The answer was as painful as the question.
When things went wrong with the government, when people were asked, they pointed at the different denominations for causing the split.
The churches and the congregations in Fiji were so divided.
Togetherness was not there.
And all we were doing was saying, we are the best, we are right, they are wrong. And we were pointing fingers at one another.
People were going in different directions. They were doing what they wanted to do.
It looks as if in every corner of Fiji, in the society, we are asking. In provincial council, in parliament, what else? We have tried this and that, they're all bitter.
Duly alarmed, Fiji's president and senior chiefs called a meeting with church leaders. Their message was courteous, but to the point. Denominational disunity was having serious consequences, and the consequences were affecting the entire nation.
And a lot of us, we take responsibility, of what happened in the nation.
Fiji's church had but one place to go, to its knees.
There have been long cries of revival and transformation of our people in this country. And individual churches have taken this into their own agenda and tried to work separately from each other. But now, something happened. It has brought us together to put our cry together to the Lord. And this is the cry, the genuine cry of the people from their hearts to put to their God.
It was not like just a sobbing, but it was like a wailing, where people just cried out,
So everywhere people were praying. They knew that if there was to be any solution to Fiji's problem, it had to come from God and God alone.
When the events of May 2000 happened, there were pastors who got together in their churches and just prayed and submitted to God and asked for God's forgiveness and for God to help out, because I think they too believed that it was the last call from God for not just the pastors but for our people and our leaders just to humble themselves and turn to God.
It was on the basis of the prayers of the country through the various denominations that has pulled this country back from the brink of disaster.
Fiji needed a miracle, and there was only one person who could provide it.
And I believe and very excited that God has intervened in bringing his body together.
This is an hour that we will be living for, because we know that revival is going to hit, that God is going to heal this nation.
Christians began waking up to the fact that cooperation with God and with one another was long overdue.
When we see the downward spiral of the nation, a lot of us, we're able to say, hey, now I think it's time for us to come together.